Hi, welcome to Informative Speaking and your rock star moments. It looks a little bit differently in this module because I'm actually sitting behind my phone and camera at my laptop that I'm going to be scrolling down. If I were up on camera, we wouldn't be able to see a close up of the Word document. So I know you're not going to be able to see everything in here. So I'm hoping what you're going to do is open another window and you can hear me go through it as you're reading it, hopefully for a second or third time at this point. So again, this is an informative speech on pretty much anything that you'd want. It will be researched and hopefully it's something that you have a bit of knowledge on already and you're looking forward to researching more. Again, you have the choice if you want to sign up for a slot in Zoom or if you want to do the upload of the video of your speech. So, as we go along this part in manuscript delivery, as we go over parts of the packet, so your goal is to organize a one-page researched outline. So you're going to see some parts are in full sentences and some parts are in fragments. The reason why it's one page is so you can deliver it from a small amount of notes from that outline. So that means you practice it a lot, probably 4 or 5 times through, so that you're very familiar with it so you can really deliver it from limited notes. And 4 to 6 minutes. So what that means is you're going to time it ahead of time to make sure that you fall into the 4 to 6. So informative speeches increase the audience's knowledge of a topic. It completely stays away from persuade. Not that persuade is a bad thing. We have lots of power when we give speeches. But most of the time, in 4 to 6 minutes, we can't cover both sides. I certainly wouldn't say that it's impossible to do. It's just harder to do. So we stick with the informative. And if you're interested, we offer public speaking. We offer theories of persuasion, both which cover persuade, and they're great classes. You could see that informative speeches explain, instruct, demonstrate, or describe, and all examples are below. You'll make sure it's interesting, relevant, and appropriate. In terms of making it relate to the audience, people usually find a way of doing that in terms of just why they're interested in it. I come from the mindset that if a student is interested in talking about anything for 4 to 6 minutes, it's our job to be compassionate, respectful listeners. So in terms of relating to the audience, I love this part of the course because we always learn more from someone's passion. You're going to research with at least 3 sources, including an academic journal. And my guess is some of you have done it already, and for some of you, it will be new. I'm going to put up another recording that goes through the steps in the library that I put up on Blackboard of how to find an academic journal. Academic journals are written by scholars in the discipline, and I want you to know how to use one. So even if it's loosely related to your topic, that's absolutely fine. And you'll say them in the speech. I'm not against Wikipedia, just know that it counts as an extra source, not one of the 3. So in terms of the main categories, there are 7. You could do a person, and I give you lots of examples. It could be a place, and I want to be very clear, it does not have to be a place in New York. I just happened to take a couple speeches that students have done in the past, and then actually a student who recently graduated told me about a trip that she took out east to Lavender Fields. I thought that's really neat. I'm going to look into it. So if you want to look into it first. A thing. So I get lots of sports fans in here, maybe the Astros cheating scandal from a while back or anything else. There's events and groups and concepts and processes. What I think you should do is make a list of things that you're passionate about, that is interesting to you, rather than just fall back on, well, should I do a person or a place or a thing? Usually people look into where their passions are. They look through their phone, their scroll history of different websites. So you really can do practically anything. I always tell students my favorite word is yes. I love saying yes to these projects. You'll use a visual aid. It could also be an audio aid. Most times students do visual aids. And Now that we have so much technology at our fingertips, most people end up doing a Google image. Sometimes they want to do a YouTube video. If you're going to do a YouTube video, just please keep it under 1 minute. That goes into your 4 to 6 minutes. If you're going to do a PowerPoint, just make sure you have very little text on the screen. Sometimes people try to rival me in the clip art. A lot of times students are better at it than me. I love that. If you plan to speak through Zoom, I'll give you a chance that we can practice the share screen feature before your speech. So yeah, a visual aid enhances the presentation. When you look through the packet, you saw a few different examples. So the important thing that you're going to have are the 6 different parts to it. 5 will be on one page, and then the reference sheet will be on a separate one. So you're going to have a specific goal. It begins to inform my audience, and then it's narrowed down. So for instance, if it was to inform my audience on the Vietnam War, there's no way I could cover all of that in 4 to 6 minutes. So I might choose to phrase it as to inform my audience of 4 aspects of the Vietnam War. You're going to see in a later part that we can have between 2 and 5 main points. So you're going to narrow down the specific goal. The reason why you see it crossed out is because we don't actually say it in the speech. We begin in the introduction, and we have it on the outline to keep us on track. You're going to see in the introduction, there are 3 main parts. These are in Roman numerals. The first one is the attention getter, which you're going to see later on. You're going to tell us why you chose the topic, and then you're going to do some researched history. A lot of times people use the academic journal right there, and the reason why they use the academic journal there is because those are more dense. They're not quite as interesting as other places you're going to find online where most people do the research. So using it in the intro as a third part is fine. The thesis is one sentence that specifically previews each main point in order. Now, you might have learned in your English class that you should do it the way that it incorporates a theme. And if an English professor is telling you to do that in their class, that's exactly what they want, and that's fantastic. Here in a speech part of a class, we want you previewing every one of your main points ahead of time, and that's what you're going to see in my examples. The body is 2 to 5 well organized, evenly balanced points, so you'll time it to make sure that it is in parallel structure, and you'll see that on the outline when it says first I'll tell you about, second I'll tell you about, third I'll tell you about. And if you need some help in terms of how to organizing, you can do the body points chronologically. So if it's a historical time period, it'll go in order. Most students tend to do chronological or topical. So topical just means by all the subtopics. Very rarely do people use spatial, but I see it every once in a while. I once had a student who, in his former life before he came back to school, had been a truck driver, and he was giving us parts of roads across the United States. And it was really interesting because he taught us that anything that is 2 digits, if it's odd, so for instance, 95, Interstate 93, they all go north and south. And if it's 2 digits and it's even, it goes east to west. So if you think about 78 and Interstate 80, those all go east to west. And that was spatial. So like I said, it's rare, but you could certainly do it. Most people opt for the chronological or topical. In the conclusion, you're going to see the examples that there's 2 main parts, and this is by Roman numerals again. The first is the recap, and the second is the clincher that goes back to the attention getter. The reference sheet I have an example of, and that is in either APA or MLA style. For delivery, we talked a few chapters back in another module that it was going to be extemporaneous, which means very well organized, but it sounds conversational. That's what you see in all these modules when I have the PowerPoints up and you see my clip art. I don't have a manuscript in front of me. I am well practiced in what I'm going to be talking about, but the words are more spontaneous, and that's what we're looking for in this. Obviously, the more you practice, the more confident you'll feel. So this is what the outline is going to look like. And as you know, this is up on Blackboard. So if you want to type over mine, and if you want to remove all my parts of the underline and the red and the yellow, feel free. Everything in parentheses you'll take out. So my suggestion, once you have topic and you put it on Blackboard and it's approved, when you research, I would actually begin with a thesis. It's going to make your life easier. When you gather up your main points between 2 and 5 and you put it in your thesis, and you'll see those examples on the next few pages, it's a lot easier to construct the body and then go back to the intro and then follow down to the conclusion. So I'm giving helpful hints in all of this. So the specific goal is the narrow down topic. You don't start with it. You're going to see another page on the attention getter where you wow us. My suggestion for everything 3 up top, and you'll see it in my examples, just put one line and then ... You know you're going to expand on it, but that will keep it to one page and still easy on the eyes. Again, in the part 3, you'll take research from the academic journal. The thesis is 1 sentence. And for the body, you're plugging it right from the thesis. So parallel structure is like the chorus of the song. That's why we always remember that part first for anyone who's a shower singer or if you sing in the car. So what that means is first I'll tell you about, and then you say what it's going to be. The A's and B's are going to be in fragments. And then it's second I'll tell you about, and you're going to have that main point there, and the A's and B's in fragments. And you're citing your sources all along. You're actually telling us where you got the information from in the speech. You can do the visual aid anywhere before the conclusion. The reason why we don't want it after the conclusion is if we think your speech is over and we're ready to clap, and then you say, wait, let me show you my visual aid. It's better when it's before. It's like when the teacher's about to dismiss class when kids are little and they say, wait, you forgot to give us homework. All right, so I give you some pointers on here. So I give you 3 different examples throughout. The very first one is on the 2016 presidential election, and you're gonna laugh as you see the examples. I'm sure some of you did already. I did this so early on. There are people who weren't in the running who are on here, and there's someone who's the president now who was actually not even in the mix when I had done this during a snowstorm years back. In my public speaking class, which is COM 105, we have a big focus on current events, so that's why you see some of that here. So you could see my specific goal is to focus on, inform my audience on 3 aspects of the 2016 presidential election, which I don't actually show. I don't say that. My intro begins with the attention getter, and you could see it's only 1 line. I talk about why I picked it, and then I give some researched history, but again, it doesn't go over 1 line. So when I was researching, again, I began with a thesis. So I would literally say, today I'll be informing you about major differences between Democrats and Republicans, the top 2016 Democratic presidential candidates, and the top Republican presidential candidates. Hopefully, by the end of my speech, if I were to give this, you would have no idea where I stand, because that's an informative speech. If I was telling you where I stand, then that would make it a persuasive speech. If you're curious where I stand, feel free to Zoom with me during office hours and we can talk at length. So what you see in the body are a few different layouts. You're not doing keywords in one and then long parts in another and then A1 or